Hello and welcome back to another episode of Coaching Conversations. Today we're going to be speaking about what cash flow is exactly and why it's so important for you in your business. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Coaching Conversations. Today, it's not Nick and Chris, it's Nick and one of our other business growth experts, Tony. Tony, how are you today?
I'm great, Chris. Awesome. And it's great to be back on the podcast and spend some time with you and talking to our tribe out there.
Yeah, cool. We thought we would mix things up today. You know, Nick's fantastic, but let's be honest, we all want a bit of a change every now and again. What do they say? Change is as good as a holiday. So we're mixing it up. And we thought we'd bring Tony in. Tony is one of our, resident experts when it comes to all things money. And if you're listening to this, you're going to want to really tune in for this episode. We've got a cracker lined up for you today. We're breaking down, how important cash flow really is in your business. So if you're running a business right now, whether you sell a product or a service, and you work really hard and you make sales, and then you don't necessarily have enough money at the end of the month to pay people, or you're getting your P&L and it has a number at the bottom, but it's not what's in your bank account. This, could be a great episode for you. Tony's going to speak about the challenges and how to overcome those challenges when it comes to cash flow. So let's kick things off, Tony. Why don't we start with this? Why don't you explain to the listeners and the viewers today what cash flow is and why it's important, to any business to start off with?
Yeah, I think, Chris, it's one of the basic fundamentals, as a coach. One of the things that I like to make sure that, our clients sort of get a real firm grasp on is that in business, a lot of it's about making money, and making money is really critical to a lot of, success in the business as well. So it's just important that people actually understand how to do that. And a lot of people that I come across sort of don't even understand the basics of it. And cash flow management is one of those things. And what I wanted to do today was to sort of just help people understand what it is and, how it works and what they can do to actually sort of make that a little bit better for them, but also help them to understand it at a bit of a deeper level so that they can do things in and around their business. I think perfect. One of the things, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say that's perfect. Good. That sets the tone.
Yeah. And look, one of the things that I got, I suppose made aware of fairly early in the piece was a really good analogy that helped me understand what cash flow actually meant for me and for my business. And it took me quite some time to get my head around this, but when it did, it just sunk in really quickly. And it's very simple because it's something that we do every day, and that's breathing. And if you think about it in terms of cash flow is like the breath that we use for our body. The idea behind it is that we take it for granted that we just breathe in and we breathe out, normally. And if we do that and we just sort of take a normal breath, we breathe in, we breathe out, everything just cruises along really well. But as the same in business, as the same as in our body, once we start to maybe shorten that breath a little bit, and you can try this as an exercise, just try taking little breaths in and big breaths out.
Okay, so if you're listening to this right now, let's all try this exercise. And let's be real about this. Let's give it a go. So walk us through it, Tony. So deep breath out, long breath in. You lead us through it.
Yeah, little breath in. So think of this as the money. We've not got enough money coming in, but we're actually spending more than what's going out. So think about small breath in, big breath out. Let's just do that 3 or 4 times. Okay, together. In, out, in, out, in.
I'm running out of breath there.
All right. So what happens is the same in business. Okay. What we're doing is we're putting our business under stress, under duress, and in our body, our heart rate goes up, our body starts to panic, and sort of, it starts to actually sort of go into sort of crash mode. I mean, it's exactly the same in our business. So we need to make sure that, throughout the term that we've got our business from beginning to end, that we're making sure that we're bringing in more than we're actually pushing out. That's really the idea. So when you start to take those really deep breaths in, a little bit out, you start to populate your body with a lot more oxygen, which makes you feel better.
Mm.
It's more vibrant, that type of thing. And it's exactly the same in business. So if you're suffering cash flow, just sort of try breathing and get the feel for what's really happening in your business.
Right.
But this will really help you just get to understand what's going on.
That's a fantastic analogy through an exercise. And if you're running a business right now and you know that there's long breaths out, i.e. you're paying lots of money out and there's not a lot coming back in, that's a sure sign to tell you that cash flow might be a problem for you in your business right now. So if you're doing that little exercise, think about, don't do it while you're driving, just in case you pass out. But it's a great exercise for you to actually, put it into comparison with your business to go, right, I'm now thinking a little bit more seriously about my cash flow position, which is great. So from here, Tony, let's talk about what causes this cash flow crisis in a business.
Every business is different, Chris, and I look at my business and I look at a lot of other businesses as well. So everybody is different, but you can sort of just get a bit of a feel for some of the basics in terms of what should and shouldn't be happening. And primarily for me, when I look at sort of people with cash flow problems, it's normally one of these things that actually sort of comes about. It normally starts with either not enough money coming in, too much going out. So have a look at what that sales ratio is to actually sort of what your spending is. So if your sales aren't really stacking up at the moment, but you're still spending that same amount of money as what it was when you were busy, that's going to cause you a cash flow problem. If there's not enough the money allocated to, let's say, profit, if you're not making the margins that you should be making, you're soon going to run out of that excess that you normally need to pay off for some of those other things that you've got around your business. If your expenses are too top heavy for the business, some people have got far too many resources, be them staff, be it equipment, be it any of those things that cost them money to run the business. If it gets quiet, they're still costing you money. Those staff still have to be paid each week. So you really need to be thinking about making sure that you've got that balance always right in terms of what you've got coming in versus what you've got going out. One of the big things that I think is often crippling to business, which really hurts their cash flow, is when they're not keeping up those regular payments. So things like the tax office, the ATO, for example, things like superannuation, things like insurances or regos on vehicles, those types of things that are those big one-off things that maybe happen once a month. What you tend to find is that you're managing sort of the day-to-day flow of money coming in and out, but when those big thing comes along, it tends to just drain everything out, and then you're sort of playing catch-up for a couple of months, and it seems that you can never get really back in front. So they tend to be often the things that I see that really affect most businesses in cash flow.
That's good. I really, want to pay attention to that last one. I guess that's behind the kind of the periodic payments or the regular payments. I think, speaking to clients that I've spoken with and business owners that I've spoken with, that's something that would catch people out, particularly around BAS, super, those sorts of things where they might not be making the margins that they wish, but they're just plodding on until we get to that quarterly interjection, or it's, getting to the end of the month and realizing, oh, wow, I need to come up with like 10 grand. Where am I going to find that? And that's when I guess that's not too late, but it's very late in the piece for you to realize, shit, we have a cash flow problem here. Like this is an issue. So that's, and hopefully this resonates with people that are listening or watching this. And it can catch people out. Do you have any stories or any examples of businesses?
I've got loads, because there's so many people that sort of get affected by this, Chris. And I think, one of the things is that people sort of, think it's okay to go on a payment plan with the ATO or, or defer their super payments, but it's going to catch up with them at some point, Chris. And I think that's the thing here is that that's what keeps business owners awake at night, I reckon. It's knowing that they've always got that debt or that they're always behind the 8 ball type of thing with either payments or just the flow of money. You just think for some reason that something's going to happen and it's all going to be, magic wanded away somewhere. It's just going to disappear into the night, but it doesn't. It stays there and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then that's when businesses really get into trouble or into strife. And it's a fact that actually cash flow is the third biggest killer of business.
Is that
Simply,
right?
yeah, it's number 3 in the rating. So
Wow.
it is something that's very prevalent out there. It's something that a lot of people
Mm.
don't understand, or they don't manage well enough
Mm.
before it's too late. And then when it is too late, there's not many options for them to get out of it. When they're in a lot of debt, the only thing for them to do is to really bail out, and that's what a lot of business owners are doing at the moment.
Right, right. And times can be tough now as well, with what's happening around the world, whether
Yeah,
people's markets have changed or not. Now is more than ever is the time to be looking at your cash flow in your business to ensure that you're cash flow positive,
yeah,
making sure that the cash is fluid in your business.
yeah,
So you've talked us through, I guess, some of the issues that cause cash flow problems and why it's so important for us. So give us some golden nuggets now, T. Like what are the solutions to getting over this cash flow hump? How do we speed the cash flow up, or what are the solutions to getting into a better cash position with our businesses?
yeah. I think that the first piece of advice, I've got 3 really good tips, or 3
Great.
good, really good tools that'll help you do this, Chris. But the first and foremost is to just become more aware of what's going on in your business from a financial point of view. That's the key thing, is that if you don't know, then find out. If you need some help, contact me, or one of the coaches, and we'll
Mm.
help you actually get a much higher level of awareness, so that you know what to do and you know what's going on within your business.
Yeah.
And then once you've got some of those sort of key pointers, then you can go and use the tools that I'll share with you now to help you actually get a much clearer picture, but also start to put some things in place that will really help you manage this a lot better. Ultimately, it's about you managing it. And don't
Yeah.
think that this is the bookkeeper's responsibility or your accountant's responsibilities. This
Yes.
lies wholly and solely with you. That's
Yep.
where the responsibility sits. When the
Mm.
business goes down, it's going to be you, not the business. It's going to be you. That's what you've got to look at this as. Now, one of the first things I want to tell you about is that you have access to a free, simple tool that will help you understand this at a much higher level, almost overnight. And it's called your bank statement. And your bank statement is your monthly business tool that you can
Mm.
sit down and you can just look at what comes in and what goes out. I know a lot of people do this really well for their home situation.
Mm.
They're managing sort of how much they're spending and how much the wife's spending and the kids are spending, and they're having a look at what they've got at the end of each month, and they're
Yep.
seeing whether they're in the red or the black. That's
Yep.
basically how it works. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly the same in business. This is the first place to start. Get
Mm.
really aware of what's happening on your bank statement. Have a look at what those numbers are. There's normally a very good summary at the bottom of the page, which will tell you how much came in and how much went out. And you can
Mm.
tell pretty quickly as to what's going on within the business just by looking at that. Then start to look and go, okay, I need to just have a look at where the imbalance is here and see what I can start to shift around in order to actually sort of bring this into line with where it should be.
Mm.
That's
You've mentioned, yeah. Sorry, you go.
And that's the first, first point for you to have a look at, is to go to your bank statement and find out what's going on.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that quickly. You've said before, it might have been in a presentation or something, T, it's not what you earn, it's what you spend. So it's what's
Exactly
going
right.
out that
Yeah,
puts people into a sticky situation.
yeah,
And it's so easy. Literally get a highlighter out and outline everything that's going out and I guess what's coming in, but then be very aware of
yeah,
what's going out. And then start to look at, what was that payment for?
yeah,
What's that? What's that payment at XYZ store? Like start to scrutinize those expenses.
yeah.
Very good. That's step one. What else
Yeah.
have you got, T?
Step 2 is a great tool that, again, you've got free access to, and it's available on the australiabusiness.gov.au site. If you go there and you just search for cash flow statement, what
Mm-hmm.
it will do is it'll give you a really good spreadsheet, and it's all set up for you. The formulas are all there, everything that you
Mm.
need in that spreadsheet. And what I do with a lot of my clients that are struggling in this area, I get them to use this as 2 different things. One is for a budget or a plan for, let's say, the forthcoming year. We've just started a new financial year. Now
Yes.
is the best time for you to actually sort of sit down spend a little bit of time plotting out what should happen this financial year. So you
Hmm.
can use this spreadsheet to just plot what you think should happen or what you'd like to happen from a cash flow point of view each month. You
Mm.
can also use it as a tracking tool to then see how you actually went against that. So see what you actually spent and where you spent that money so that you can plot it on this spreadsheet, and it will be the best tool that you ever use. It will be the thing that actually changes most things for your business from a financial point of view if you
Right.
just use this tool and use it well.
Great. And it's free, you
It's
said.
free.
Wow.
And it's all set up, and the ATO have done this to really help people because they know it's an issue. But if you
Mm.
use this tool, you will see how it works, and it
Awesome.
will become very apparent to you, just in the first month that you start to use it. You'll gain a lot from just the level of understanding that you have of adding the numbers up and seeing where they go and what it all, comes out to at the end of the day.
Great. So business.gov.au, and then you said punch in, was it cash flow statement?
Yeah, just cash flow statement. Set up
Right.
cash flow statement, and it will
Cool.
bring you to the page. You can download it really easy, and you can
Mm.
start using it straight away. This is the month to start using it. July in this
Absolutely.
financial year. Let's just map out what we think is going to happen this year, and let's plot
Mm.
against that and see whether we are actually getting close to where we should be.
Very good. That's
The last
awesome.
one I want to share with you, Chris, is about trying to structure those payments so that
Mm.
you don't get those big, massive bills or those big, lump sums that you have to pay out, which causes this almost hemorrhaging in the business every time
Mm.
the BAS comes around or every time the insurance comes around, something needs to happen. So
Yep.
it's actually getting into a new habit or a new routine, and I've heard lots of stories, and I think you and I have read lots of books about little envelopes for different things that you have to put a little bit of money in aside each month to make
Mm.
sure that you've got things for a rainy day.
Mm.
And this is what this sort of last principle is about. It's just about making sure that you're putting money aside to actually cover those situations that are going to crop up throughout the year. And
Mm.
it's a really good practice to get yourself into, even if you've got separate accounts where you know that you're putting money aside for your badge, you're putting money aside for your superannuation, and it's almost taken out in the week that you're doing it, rather than allowing it to actually build up to such a point where it's just unaffordable for the business to actually pay that
Yeah.
sort of. And that
Okay.
again is just going to help you actually get into, a much better routine or a much better
Mm.
sort of system, so that again you can just avoid this roller coaster ride of up and down, up and down. You'll have this nice sort of smooth line, hopefully going upwards from here on.
Very good. So I guess kind of budgeting, or at least planning out those payments, like you said, putting little bits of money aside for each expense is the best way to move forward. And if you need help with this, like you've just mentioned, reach out to us.
Yeah.
We'll throw us, if you've got a question, you're like, I get it, but maybe I've got more that I have to put away for than I'm earning. Maybe that's a possibility. Shoot us an email, ask@upcoach.com.au. We're happy to help try and even the balance for you. But that's great. So you've got three really good takeaways there, T. And I think the cash flow statement from the business.gov.au website is a fantastic tool. I've seen that. Great ways for people that are struggling with the cash flow in their business. So can you give us a bit of a wrap up, T? Today we've kind of discussed, why it's important, areas of concern, or why cash flow might be tight in people's businesses, and three big ways to actually relieve that or turn it around. Can you give us a bit of a summary or a wrap on the last 25 minutes or so?
Yeah, sure can, Chris. And again, I'm going to go back to where we started and said, first and foremost, it's about understanding. It's about awareness. Understand how this impacts on your business and how it does that day to day, week to week, month to month. Get a real good sort of understanding for yourself first and foremost. That's really going to be the key thing for you. Get clear on what those numbers are that you need to be working on. So understand what your outgoings are. Your outgoings for the business don't really change that much. Your cost of goods might. I know your sales definitely will, but your overheads tend to sort of stay around the same month to month. Just make sure that you can cover those off. And then you've also got that sort of, fluidity, if you like, between, your sales versus your sort of your cost of goods that's going out for the business.
Yeah.
Certainly use the tools that are available to you. So particularly like your bank statements, and also, the schedule from the ATO. These are really good tools to help you actually not only understand, but also manage and control what happens with your cash flow.
Mm.
And there's no reason for you not to actually, have that level of awareness if you're using these tools.
Yeah. I have a very simple question I'd like to ask just on that point. If there's people listening and they're like, I'm not very good with the numbers, or I kind of lean on my accountant for advice in this area. I know that you say, obviously, you need to have greater accountability towards it. You really need to start knowing your numbers. But what would be the first step to actually going, look, if I'm not a guy that's like, I'm really good at everything else, but knowing the numbers is hard for me.
Yeah.
Do I reach out to my accountant and ask for help? I mean, what's the step there?
Yeah, I think you've got to understand that your accountant, they're there to do a couple of things. Primarily just to put numbers in boxes. That's really what they're there to do, to keep the tax office happy, let's say.
Yeah.
But they're also there as business advisors for you as well. And they know how this works, and they will know a good element of your business. What I did, after that 5 years of me struggling in my business, I went and spent 2 days with my accountant, and that was the thing that turned everything around for me. That was the turning point for me in business, because then from that day on, I knew what I needed to do, how I needed to do it, and what my numbers were. And that's changed everything for me. That was 2 days of investment of time and energy and effort that have paid me back 20,000-fold since. So.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, great. Cool. I just wanted to clear that because there might be people listening that are in that position. So cool. What else did you have to wrap things up?
And no, just the last one was about sort of scheduling those payments, Chris, because I do think that can be the key for a lot of people, because they just don't understand that they need to basically provision for these things. They know they're coming, and a lot of people sort of fear them, and they try to avoid them, and they think something's going to happen that's going to magic it all away, but it won't. So scheduling those payments and making sure that they're prepared, for those, big outlays as well, so that it doesn't impact the cash flow on the business. It still leaves enough money for them to run the business. That's what they really need to get into a better habit of. I think that's the key.
Perfect. Some really great takeaways from what you've been speaking about today, Tony. And I think it's, like you said, it's the third biggest killer of businesses out there. And I would say almost every business that I have been working with or coaching through have struggled in some aspect or some way with cash flow at some point in their business's life. But it wasn't until the business owner took accountability for it and went, right, I have to change this. Change requires change. If I don't do anything about it, it's just going to stay the same or get worse. So I think what the advice you've given us today, Tony, has really hopefully helped put forward some ideas, or at least propelled some momentum with business owners that might be struggling with cash flow. And like I said, if you're struggling with cash flow and you're not really sure where to turn, or you've got some questions, shoot us a question at ask@upcoach.com.au, and either myself or Tony will answer that directly. So thank you so much for the golden nuggets today, T. I really appreciate you being here and spending time with us. Any final parting words before we disappear?
Yeah, think of it this way, and I know a lot of people that I've spoken to too. If you want to sleep well at night, get your cash flow sorted out.
Right. That's it. That's the best line to finish on. If you want to sleep well and you run a business, get your cash flow sorted. We're going to finish on that. Thank you so much for listening, guys, or watching. We'll be back again with another episode of Coaching Conversations again next week. Bye now.
Thank you.